We are continuing our conversation on the evolution of blue with like a completely different painting on many levels. This is painting chosen by Terrill, and she surprised me like to no end with this choice. But the more I looked at it, the more I realized that there is no reason to be surprised. This is a very natural choice. So, Terrill, to you.
Okay, so what we are going to talk about, the painting that I chose is Blue and Green Music by Georgia O'Keeffe. And so we're going to go from the previous week where we were in 1520 to when she painted this one. And I'm going to pull it up, and then I'll talk a bit more about her and about the painting, just to give us a bit of context here. So this painting isn't huge. It's about 23 by 18 inches. And I really actually had a hard time choosing which painting I wanted to choose. And once I got to a place where I knew I was going to choose one of Georgia O'Keeffe's paintings, it was a choice between this one and Above the Clouds that was painted in 1962. And Georgia O'Keeffe did a series of paintings throughout her very long painting career about blue. And she, if you have a chance, you can look through her paintings and you can find them. And she used blue for different purposes, and she used different kinds of blue for different purposes. And I think that's why I chose her over Picasso or another painting from around the same time. Because Picasso's blue period was more about his trauma and emotional almost breakdown from the death of his friends, and he used blue in a very, what they call the dark blue, a black blue, and it had to do with that one emotional process. And for our purposes, I felt that was too narrow. I wanted somebody that really got into using blue in its various pigments to do different things. And that brought me to this specific painting. Now, what she was doing at the time is she did a series of paintings about interpreting pieces of music through painting. And from the notes I have, that was, and Elena will be able to tell you a little bit more about this particular book, if there's something that comes to mind. But it was one by Kandinsky that he, in his text from 1912, concerning the spiritual in art, and argued that the visual artist should emulate music in order to achieve pure expression free of literal reference. And so she would have been aware of that. It would have been something that would have been prominent for her. Regardless, though, she had the skill, ability, and determination to take whatever she wanted to where she wanted it to go. And in this painting, there's at least 2 different blue pigments. And one of them is the purest ultramarine that's kind of goes from the top left in a slice, and then on the top right, it appears to me on my screen as a cerulean blue. And then in between, she's sort of wove it back and forth across the opposite diagonal of the painting. So it's an abstract painting with, you could you know, C shapes in it if you wanted. And it was the time when Freud was very dominant in discussions, and so people were looking for Freudian references in people's paintings, which she used to annoy the heck out of her. And but anyway, this painting, when I saw it, I just couldn't stop looking at it. And it just sings to me. It's just, there's something about the movement in the painting that is almost visceral. I can sort of, you know, it's like there's a wind behind it on a clothesline or something. And yet it still has a kind of solidness to it. So for you know, I look at blue, being, you know, one of the greatest modernist painters, American modernist painters, to me, this is a good touchstone. One that I will probably come back to. It wasn't a painting I knew before I was making decisions, and one I'll probably come back to again and again. So those are my thoughts. Over to you, Elena.
It's interesting. Kandinsky, of course, talked about music as an example for painting with the idea of having no representation, no story. But as many an abstract painter found, it's kind of different to paint something in which a human eye wouldn't actually see something else. Even if not Freud, then for me, this has a definitely landscape feel, this kind of growth upwards and waves of green at the left corner. And what's particularly interesting to me is how green, what she dances with is the fact that blue and green have different qualities as far as how we perceive their distance from us. And using the opposition between green and blue, she creates this movement from towards us and away from us on the picture plane, almost breaking the picture plane. So we is this actually one plane, or are there several planes? Is it something represented there that has the structure, or the picture plane itself is becoming to have the structure? Using this blue and green without obvious reference to objects, these qualities, distance qualities, which Kandinsky loved, by the way, very much, they become more prominent. So the eye tries, that's what eye or brain does, right? We get this two-dimensional image, and the brain is conditioned to reconstruct a three-dimensional thing out of it. And that's what we do here, using almost only the opposition between green and blue for cues. And this is how the dance begins. And I also think there is another quality of blue which at the very heart of this painting. It is that it can stretch the whole range of values from black to white, right? Even the darkest darks here and the lightest lights are both blue. You cannot do it with yellow, for example. Or if you try to do it with red, if you dilute it, it just stops being red. Blue stays blue. Whatever you add to it, I mean, whatever.
It's still blue.
It's still blue. That's the core quality of blue that plays here. And I also love how she combines. So no wonder there were Freudian interpretations, because of the combination of the strict geometrical forms and these organic forms within it. So yeah, it's just kind of all this male-female balance. What do you think? So the idea is, when we see the painting which is so cold, which doesn't try to harmonize colors in itself. So in opposition, the rest, our environment, the space within which the painting finds itself, must feel warmer. The eye adjusts itself to cold colors, and so it kind of creates harmony for itself. The eye kind of adjusts its white balance in this way, right? But I don't feel it. That's how, I mean, what I want to say is that theoretically, the painting that blue must call forth orange in me, but it doesn't. The gray in the middle, on the edge, on the diagonal edge.
Yeah.
And this gray might first seem strange in this colorful painting, but it actually absorbs that. It takes all this into itself.
And her olive, like that, that kind of I don't know, plum gray and the olive green. Without those, then it may not have the balance that it needed, for sure. And in some ways, the abstractness of it, the blue, the colors need to stand more firmly just as color, and she mixed that kind of firm stance with color with the same kind of things that Titian was doing with the sky in the middle, so that it's and like you were saying with the green, it's got these kind of overlapping movement to it. I think that's about all for
yeah, I think so. Here was another blue painting, if possible even more fascinating. And I think this distance between these two paintings, it just opens up this space for discussion, for an absolutely infinite discussion, the infinity of blue. So please ask questions, comment, join us in our fascination with blue.